Welcome to the Sanity Project podcast, the place for internet technology professionals whose work-life balance plan has imploded. We are here to provide solutions that will help the IT pro live a sane, healthy, and prosperous life. Here's your host, Joanne Victoria.
Hi, this is Joanne Victoria with another recording of the IT Sanity Project podcast. The Sanity Project podcast is a platform for experts in the self-help, self-development, and healthcare communities to share their wisdom, expertise, and solutions that will help the IT pro live a sane, healthy, and prosperous life. Our guest today is Sensei Victoria Whitfield. Sensei Victoria Whitfield is an internationally recognized holistic stress management and natural intuition development mentor, published author, and actively tours the globe sharing energy healing experiences and trainings with heart-centered organizations like tech giant AT&T, local boutique business teams, and driven yet empathic solo entrepreneurs. In her work, she seamlessly mixes personal growth, shamanism, Reiki, and meditation to facilitate healing. Coming from a long line of entrepreneurs and energy sensitives, Sensei Victoria Whitfield has a uniquely intimate understanding of the type of healing and spiritual support entrepreneurs, employees, and contractors need on the journey to growing themselves and their businesses. Welcome, Sensei Victoria.
Oh, hi, Joanne Victoria. It's so good to be here.
I'm grateful that you are here. I know you're very busy, traveling the world, doing many things. And what's going on in your life today?
So today in particular, I was with a group of entrepreneurs and business owners talking to them actually on a similar topic that we're going to be discussing today called spiritual hygiene and grounding.
Spiritual hygiene, what does that mean?
Yeah. So what this has to do with is taking care of your natural state of health. So making sure that when you are at work or if you're serving your clients or working with your teams, that you have regularized practice of clearing and preventing buildup in your own personal energy.
Yeah, that's a challenge, huh?
Yeah, I mean, it's something that it's just as important as if you were going to take a shower or wash your hands or brush your teeth. It makes all the difference when you have a teammate or a manager who is excellent with their own emotional and spiritual hygiene. They talk to you differently. The culture around them is completely different. When they know how to handle their, what I call affectionately, emotional cooties, they can handle theirs.
That's so true, though. You know, that's it. You've said it so clearly.
Mm-hmm.
If people can handle their own, they don't have to worry about the others.
Exactly, because I mean, we all have had the experience of working with different teammates and coworkers who have really bad spiritual and emotional hygiene, where if they're depressed, they spread their depressed cooties all over the environment. Or if they're off their game, it's showing in their work, right? There's this, it's like a virus, right? So think of it this way. During cold and flu season, we're all making sure that, you're getting the Purell, you're washing your hands extra just to make sure that everything's nice and clean so that in case someone comes in and maybe their kids had a cold or whatever, that the rest of us were not really catching that cold. But you can feel it when you're speaking. Well, I know some of your listeners are probably more sensitive enough to know this, that when you're talking to someone and your throat starts to tickle, then I think I'm about to catch something off of this person. So on a biological level, we're able to pick up on, this person has, like, I think I might get something off of this person, or, okay, they're sneezing. Ooh, let me wash my hands, or let me make sure I clean up my space a little bit extra.
Sure.
So that I don't catch it off them. The same thing happens emotionally. So for a person who has bad emotional and spiritual hygiene, what it would look like is that they have a hard time listening, for example, because they don't know how to contain themselves when other people are around. So if someone else is trying to express during the meeting, trying to make their point, they interject. Or you can feel their anxiety. Maybe they like tap a lot, their hand on the table, etc. Or if they are given feedback, they're defensive immediately. And what happens is that's a trigger. They're being triggered because they don't have very good hygiene about themselves, spiritually and emotionally. But what happens is that trigger, if they react, for example, getting feedback that's, a little bit, vulnerable. It can make you feel a bit vulnerable. Saying, "Oh, you dropped the ball there," or what happened with this report, etc. So when that person reacts, that's like a sneeze, I would have to say, from someone who has a cold. And then if the person who's giving the feedback, or people, the other people at the meeting, are witnessing this, and they don't have very good immune systems, so to say, around this, then they'll get triggered too. So from their sneeze, like, well, I didn't mean to do that, or I didn't get that email, sort of, the tone of voice.
Yeah, I've seen that in the teams, defensiveness.
Yeah.
It's like, but what I've seen too is these people do it over and over and over and over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
Not just once. It's not just an aberration. It's a consistent pattern and habit.
Mm-hmm. And the tragedy is we don't have enough education around how to manage that, right? How to basically wash your hands of your reactiveness, if we're going to continue the analogy of, right, hygiene. There's not enough education around that in the corporate sector, definitely not amongst entrepreneurs and business owners. So we assume that teammate, they're damaged goods. So for one, we'll write them up, we'll try and send them over to HR, maybe some sensitivity training, blah, 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 blah. But we assume that this person is broken, or that there was some sort of a hiring error. For the organizations that don't really have great hygiene as well, they'll just cut you out, right? Downsizing, or so on and so forth. But what I'm really determined to share with managers, with teams, with leadership, is that there are ways to teach people to learn how to be better communicators, to teach people to learn how to have more of a healthy relationship with their emotions and where they're at, even if where they're at is really uncomfortable or they're going through a tough time. You can still show up and contribute value to the team, yet be going through something difficult, as well as in the leadership, know how to handle yourself when you're dealing with people who are having issues as well. Mm-hmm.
That's perfect, because this is what they need. It's the leaders of whatever capacity, team leader, section leader, leaders of the company. They need to learn this. I say need, must, have to, should learn this, so that it's their company. I mean, it's the investment that they have of themselves in the company to be aware of the employee or contractor's emotional situations. As you say, if they fight back the feedback, I like that.
I love it. Yeah, that's great.
If they fight back the feedback, that it's not something that they should be necessarily chastised for. They should be helped and healed, or shown how to heal.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And what we have is that more and more, with that, more and more people are entering the workforce and then also being promoted who've come from, unfortunately, peer groups and social circles and environments where communication and managing oneself is not really the norm. Maybe they came from a broken home. Maybe they're going through a really difficult divorce. Right? Or honestly, recently there's been a lot of turmoil around natural disasters and so many things in the media, but there's so many ways to be emotionally triggered. What's not being talked about or featured, unfortunately, in such big fabulous platforms as social media or the news,
Sure.
is how to deal, how to cope, how to grieve when you when you lose a loved one or you lose your position, right? Grieving process is absolutely necessary and natural in both situations. But instead, we only focus on, well, what was the outcome? Not really the rest of life, right? Which is the journey leading up to what the outcome was, as well as the journey afterward, after the event happens. And that's what I'd like to start shining just a little bit of light on today. We only have so much time together to start chipping into this topic, but this is so good, Joanne Victoria, that you're raising awareness for professionals around this, because to your listeners, you're not alone, right? There's nothing wrong with you. You were just dealt a bad hand, and it's time that someone essentially taught you how to wash your hands. Like, for the first time. A fun fact, by the way, I didn't learn how to tie my shoes until I was 9 years old. Can you believe that?
You know why I do believe that? Even as an adult, my own kids would say, my daughter especially, my sons don't care about that much. My daughter said, "Don't you know how to tie your shoes right?" I said, "What do you mean?" She says, "You're doing it backwards."
Mm.
I said, "What do you mean I'm doing it backwards?" Sometimes I feel as if I was sort of dropped on this earth as a walk-in, and I'm just picking up things as I go along. So
Yeah, right?
your 9-year-old not knowing how to tie their shoes might have been my 39-year-old not knowing how to tie my shoes properly, because this is all I knew, the only way I knew how. And
Yeah.
I think that's happening out in the world today. I look
Mhm.
at the news as a total distraction. This
Mhm.
this is what people look at instead of looking at themselves, because there is nothing they can do outside of themselves, really. They can only work inside of themselves.
Mm.
So with what you're sharing here about, okay, so if they're reacting or overreacting, which is redundant, but if they're reacting to things outside of themselves, what's going on inside of themselves that they can pay attention to? How can they
Mhm.
look at what was the journey that brought them here today, and how
Mhm.
can I help them along this journey, so that they know that they are not an outsider, they're not alone, they're not bad, they're not wrong, they're just living, as you said, the hand they were dealt.
Mhm.
And you help them get 4 aces in their hand instead of 5 cards of different suits and different genres. So this
Mhm.
is this is good information, in my opinion. This is good, and this is what I want these people to hear. I want everyone to hear, because I do have other people besides the IT professionals listening to these podcasts, and they're picking up this information as well. So give them a technique, a strategy, a tool, and I hate to diminish it down to those 3 words, but give them something that they can do, whoever
Mhm.
they are, on a
Mhm.
daily basis or multi-hourly
Mhm.
basis.
Mhm.
Because
Oh yeah, 1,000%. So right there with you. This is so needed. So the tool that I would like to share today in particular is grounding. And for some of you who are listening, you might think, what? Like, you mean like grounding an electrical circuit? And I I'm nodding my head. Picture me nodding my head at you, saying yes.
Yes, it
Yes,
is.
yes, yes. So, but for those of us who don't exactly understand what grounding is, so I just want to share a little bit of the philosophy behind it before I explain the exactly how.
Absolutely.
Right. So this is why we do grounding. So in electrical engineering, we have positive and negative currents, right? That we harness in electrical circuits, and it's through their movement, that constant contrast, that electricity is generated, right? That's what powers our lights, our machines, and so on and so forth. But maybe as you're listening to this broadcast right now, on one of the walls nearby, there should be a socket, right? An outlet. Well, depending on where you are on Earth, some people call it a socket, some people call it an outlet. But anyway, there's 2 prongs on top, and then there's usually a third. The third one, the one on bottom, is actually the grounding line. And what that basically is that's a metal sheath that's connected to a wire, which weaves through the house, and then literally, eventually, plugs into the dirt, into the ground. It's the neutral. This is so essential because when we have machines that are higher powered, such as, let's say, a shop vac or a fridge, right, or something big that pulls a lot of power, or maybe a dryer, for example, that pulls a lot of amps. If that grounding, wasn't there, you would bust the system, right? You'd have a circuit. The circuit would shut down, usually because there's a circuit breaker. So that's a fail-safe to prevent from blowing out the whole system. Only maybe where you're pulling too much energy within the circuitry, that the circuit breaker will cut that down. But if that ground wasn't there, you could bust lamps, you could bust all the other, it would cause a fire, there'd be serious problems. But with the ground, the neutral does is that if there's excess energy waves, it causes those to be sent to a neutral area, right? The ground. So it causes the excess to go to zero rather than short circuiting the system. Here's where grounding for you as an emotional and a spiritual being, as opposed to a machine, this is where it comes in. It's so important. Every day in life, you're experiencing positive and negative input, right? Positive input. Oh, the sun is shining. It's gorgeous. Positive input. My son smiled today. That was beautiful. Positive input. My wife is, at my side, or my wife's talking to me again, whatever. Right? Negative input. Oh God, I have to go to work today.
Right.
Negative input. The news, someone else got shot, yelled at, or exploded, whatever. Ugh. There's bad news is usually news. Negative input. I'm running late. Negative input. I wasn't really able to get through to that team member, and now there's tension. Every day there's a myriad. You have 2 inputs, right? Constant positive, negative exposure. And what happens is occasionally things get so good or so bad that it could actually short circuit your system. And that causes you to react or to shut down, right? Or to get defensive or retreat. There's so many unhealthy ways of coping with too much positive or too much negative input. An example, by the way, for someone who's listening is like, what's too much positive input? Is, maybe it's Employee Appreciation Day for, this manager, and people are like saying all these lovely things, and they just don't know how to receive it.
Mm-hmm.
So it causes anxiety for them instead of like, oh, wow, thank you, or feeling better and better with time. So that's just for some, we all know what too much negative input is, but just in case someone didn't know what too much positive was. So having a ground means having a neutral. And in humans, as well as other mammals, because I love studying how animals do this as well. That's a fun fact for the side. How we ground is through connecting to our physical bodies. Five sensual awareness. So those are the five Aristotelian senses, which is sight, sound, taste, touch, or smell. This is going to sound really simple, but what is simple is not always easy. Right there. When you're going about your workday, you want to make sure that you make it a point to connect at least one of your five senses with intention to ground and come back to a neutral space. What would that look like? So the exactly how, here's what that would look like. When you're working at your desk, take your shoes off. Simple. You're getting the touch sensation of your feet against the floor. You're more relaxed. You're more connected into your body. Another example. When you are having a difficult conversation with another teammate, make it a point to slow down and breathe. Especially the more, let's say, negative input that you're getting is pause, take a deep breath in, and continue to make eye contact with them, right? Look at the different features of their face. Allow the visual input to bring you back into a state of neutral rather than being overwhelmed by the sounds that they're making or the emotions that they're transmitting, etc. There are so many ways to ground and come back to neutral. There's also, have beautiful art. That's another visual. Let's see what else. Sound. Allowing yourself to listen to, if you can, like music at a low level, or maybe in your headphones as you work to keep you stimulated. Or I tend to do my coding, like I do web coding on the side, to birdsong and water, running water, and that keeps me feeling relaxed. But the more that you can stimulate yourself physically, the more you are able to stay connected to your ground. And the same way that machines that pull more amps need to be grounded so that they don't short circuit, it's the same level of self-care that you need when you are expected to be more productive, more visible, more vocal, more cooperative than you're comfortable with. Is this making sense?
This is making extreme sense. One question before we get to the next step here. What if someone is hosting a telephone meeting with numerous participants, over 10, from 10 to 50, for example? Mm-hmm. How would you suggest they ground themselves? I mean, I know before I get on the phone with pretty much anyone, but certainly seriously with my podcast guests, I'm grounding myself. I'm, sitting up straight, breathing deeply, maybe, jumping up and down before that to get, my blood moving. But my feet I have no shoes on and my feet are grounded to the floor. Would you say the same thing for a host of a phone meeting with multiple participants? Would that help them there?
Absolutely. So all of those things that you listed are excellent, exactly how tips to help yourself stay connected to your neutral, right? Your physicality, your body, while you're holding space for larger groups of people that are completely invisible.
Right.
Right. But also, it's helpful, especially if you have a larger call, and this is it's going to sound really simple, but this, again, the importance behind it is the philosophy of making it physical. is to have things printed out of even the people's faces who are coming so that you can still feel like in physical space, okay, I'm aware that I'm these many people. This is what so-and-so's name is, right? So you have access to that rather than just sitting with your eyes closed and forgetting how many people are actually with you. That's one thing. Another thing that I would highly recommend is standing. When you're doing teleconference, I'm standing right now, I have no shoes on. When you're doing teleconferences, it's really important the clarity of your voice and your ability to project. And when you stand, I'm not going to go into too much of the theory behind it, but there's meridians, which are lines of energy, according to the Chinese and Taoist philosophy, that run through your body, and they all intersect in and around the center of your body, right? Your stomach and your pelvis. When you sit in a chair, those are squished. But when you stand, all of the energy is able to move freely and circulate throughout your body. Even if you think on a biological and an anatomical level, your nerves and the different the blood's able to move freely through your body if you're standing. And that actually gives you a lot more stamina when you are holding space during these larger calls, right? If you have people on the bridge. I remember last time I was at AT&T, we had 150 people on the bridge, and I invited everyone in the middle of my talk, say, okay, I know you're paying attention and you're not, so I need you to stand up, stretch over your head, tickle the ceiling, and let your arms fall at your sides. Okay, you can sit back or go back to what you were doing, and let's continue. But that's managing the energy, the groundedness of the people who are listening to you, because it does take energy to continue listening. But it's also, for someone who's leading, you want to watch yourself too, to say, am I starting to feel a little bit like compressed here? And I do mean that on a physical level. Do I feel my joints feel a little bit compressed, or are my people who are listening to me, are they getting a little bit stale? Let's do something to ground, right? To connect them back to their physical bodies or to the physical environment. Yeah.
Well, I got that because even before you said stand, I stood, but I'm an avid note taker, so I have to figure out, without one of those multi-use desks, how to take notes. I take notes while I'm listening to you and things that are coming into my head at the same time, but I like taking notes, and I'm sitting taking notes, but when I stood up, I can feel the physical difference in my body, how it opened up in the center. And since I am an avid fan, again, of acupuncture, I certainly understand what you're talking about with meridians, but people just need to know, even if they're not familiar with acupuncture or meridians, just know there are lines going through your entire body and they all connect in the center somehow. Okay, so that is all amazing. And I know that the listeners are going to really be able to use what you're saying to them, and if they need more, I'll invite you back for another episode.
Absolutely.
And also I want people to know that you will be providing a free MP3 with a 25-minute healing meditation. And people, don't get your backs up when you hear the word meditation. It's not a secret society. It's not, you don't need a PhD to do it. You don't need to be a priest or a Zen Buddhist or a Tibetan Buddhist, which I practice partially. You just need to be a human being and follow the directions. That's it. Follow directions. If you know A through Z and 1 through 10, you can listen to Victoria's healing meditation, which you will receive when you look at the post on my website or look at the image on my Facebook fan page. You will be able to see the link to her website, to the MP3. And what I want to get to next is, with all that you've learned and all that you're sharing with others, what lesson did you learn that has stuck with you throughout this journey?
Mm-hmm. So for me, I come from a family that is a long line of entrepreneurs, business owners, managers, like very driven, but also very intuitive people. And so when you have a bit of the entrepreneurial bug in you, you tend to take risks. And that means you have to deal with fear and doubt often. Often. You're just kind of wired that way. This is what I've been surrounded with ever since as far back as I can remember. And so for me, on my own personal healing journey, there were some risks or some changes that I wanted to take or wanted to make. And they would make me really nervous, such as leaving my first corporate position. I was absolutely terrified. So for me, I wanted to receive more healing and energy stuff. That new age stuff appealed to me. So my first energy healer, her teaching stood with me to this day. And with her, I learned in the same moment that I'm afraid, I'm also excited. I am afraid, I am excited. It depends where my breathing is in my body. If I'm breathing in my chest, I'm afraid, I'm in a negative state of mind. I won't take action. I'll be collapsing on myself rather than showing up fully in the world. Versus when I breathe deeper, more towards my pelvis, more towards the base of my belly, I can feel more of the excitement. I have access to more of my brain as well as my body. I'm able to take action because I'm able to see more of the positive. So that one thing has carried me over the years. Every single decision that I make now as a leader, I don't want to sugarcoat this. I'm always afraid. I'm always afraid. I don't know if it's going to go well. I don't know if this person's going to understand the vision that I'm trying to communicate to them. I don't know if my team 100% gets exactly what I'm saying. I don't know if I'm sounding mean when I ask for things to be done a certain way. Blah, 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 right? We have so many things. I'll own it. I have so many things going through my head that could cause me to doubt and step back from taking positive action or taking inspired action. But this one mindset shift of when I'm afraid, I'm also very excited. What am I excited about right now? It's a question I ask myself. And so for last year, for example, I meditate regularly and I receive inspiration from the meditations that I do. And the inspiration that I got was to go on a national tour. I have never done that before. So needless to say, that was terrifying. How am I going to do that? How am I going to finance that? Where am I going to go? Who's it? And in that meditation, I received 6 names, 6 people that I knew, just to call them and talk to them about it. Say, would you want to host me for a meditation next year? And so I followed that. But the way that I went to following that inspired guidance or that inspiration that I got was that I thought to myself, okay, I'm terrified of this. And what am I excited about? When we breathe deeply. I'm so excited to meet new people. I'm so excited to share meditation with people who haven't really done it in a way that could heal them. I'm so excited to see new places. So I started to focus more on the things that inspire and excite and delight me about this risk that I was going to take, rather than focusing on, oh my gosh, it's going to cost this much to get a JetBlue flight. This is gonna be a mess. I don't know what kind of house this person has. Blah blah. Right. The more that I'm able to ground, I have the ability to access what's good.
That's it.
It's that bandwidth. Yeah, that's it.
Well, if if this doesn't help the listeners give you a rave review on iTunes, I don't know what will. I'm hearing feedback as well, but hopefully the audio dude will be able to handle it. But it's from me, so who knows what's going on in the world? Full moon coming soon. I would ask the listeners to please go to iTunes while you're listening, after you finish listening to this recording of Sensei Victoria Whitfield, about how she has made several breakthroughs using tools that she is providing you today. Re-listen to this podcast. Once is not enough. I would suggest start with twice, and then, tomorrow start with another 1 or 2 times, and then keep listening every day. You will learn more than you could possibly imagine. And when you're there, you can give the podcast a 5-star review just for being able to get Sensei Victoria Whitfield as a guest. Her website is victoriawhitfield.com, or you can go to naturalintuition.com, and I will put her social media information on the website. And is there anything that you want to promote right now that you've got going that our listeners would like to participate in or check out?
So, well, there is the free gift, the 25-minute guided meditation, where it's 5 steps to meditating. Very, very simple, very relaxing meditation. Can really help you change your meditative experience from just being kind of boring to actually being healing.
There you go.
So I would definitely say that that's the best place to go, and check out my website. There's always something new there.
Well, we're grateful that you were here. I would appreciate if people would come to my website, askjoannevictoria.com, and download their free book, The True Self Handbook, a guide to transform your life. Download it, enjoy it in part, little pieces here and there. You can go back to it at any chapter, and it will probably align with some of the things that Sensei Victoria has discussed with us today. Thank you so much for being here. Stay on the line, and we'll close down ourselves. And this has been exciting. I've taken 4 pages of notes.
Wow.
Well, I refer to them for the show quotes and so on and so forth, but also by writing down these notes, and people have to understand that writing is different than typing on a Word document. It connects with your synapses much quicker. It's in my body right now. Whatever I have written down is in my body. So get some yellow pads, people, and start writing. Thanks, everybody, for being here. Thanks, Victoria. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Bye.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Sanity Project podcast. Please go to AskJoannevictoria.com and continue the conversation on her podcast page. And get a free copy of her book, The True Self Handbook, a guide to transform your life. That's AskJoannevictoria.com. Take care, and thanks for being here.